Well, good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Person to Person with Michael Harris and Gary Stone. I am Michael Harris and Gary is going to be joining us in just a matter of moments. You know, we are both senior citizens and we have our health issues, as do our wives. And so we are, pretty busy doing things. And he's getting back from a doctor's visit. And we are now just here to talk to you about those things that are happening in the world. We have a guest a little bit later today. We'll be telling you about it. And we hope that you're having a good day. Now, it's not the best day. It has not been a good day since we heard about all of the flooding that's going on up in the I guess you could say, in some of the most beautiful parts of the state of Texas. And thus far, over 100 people have been uh, killed, and there may be many more. And I can ask that you all continue to support those families in any way that you can if they're doing fundraisers or raising food or clothes need to be given, that we would all be a part of contributing to that effort. And of course, what we also should do and can do is talk to our lawmakers, our legislators and um, those people who make decisions about things to just make the general population, the common folk, more important in their plans. If you notice, most of the stuff that we talk about are things that the government is doing for the upper class folk, the rich, those who are well connected, giving them tax breaks while they are cutting programs that benefit the poor. Now, I'm not saying that the people who lived up in Central Texas in that area were necessarily poor, but a lot of business was going on there. Oh, Gary Stone has popped up, and I have to bring Gary on. And of course, Gary is one of those persons who happens to be hit that. Okay. I'm hey, Gary, what's up, fella?
Hey,
What's up, pretty boy?
I've been running in circles today, just running in freaking circles.
Uh, it seems like you've run your hair off, Gary. Did you shave your head?
I did.
Why so, my friend?
Well, why not? I haven't shaved, but I have shaved my head, but that was from a day or two ago.
Oh,
You know, it just
well,
no
well,
reason not to, no reason to have it be growing out. So
really?
yeah,
Oh, okay. Well, I still have my Uncle Remus cut.
yeah. My hair is not as pretty as yours to let it grow out. It's very baby fine and relatively thin, but not unusually thin. It's normal thin.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always had kind of baby fine hair. It's always been soft and nice to the touch, but women seem to love their run their fingers, over my hair. So I use that as a plus. I don't see that as a negative. So
Well,
yeah. So what do you?
I, I can't necessarily remember women running fingers through my hair. But anyway,
Well, maybe that happens to white guys and not black guys. I don't know.
well, no, there are some black guys who have, you know, either curly hair or straight hair. We come in all flavors, big fella.
I
You
know
know,
you do. Oh my
yeah,
God. Yeah.
yeah, we come from the darkest dark to the lightest white and still be black.
Yeah. Yeah. I understand. Um, so yeah. So just been dealing a lot with my wife's illness, Claudia's illness. This morning, we got some good news that she thought that she might have cancer in her shoulders and in her back, but at least we know now from the x rays we did this morning that's not the case in her shoulders. and we don't know for certain about her back, but it doesn't look like we can't really understand the source of her pain. And she's been taking, other than the rib, where we're going to have that radiated next week. So every day next week, she's going in for radiation. To my understanding, it's not been scheduled yet. That'll happen on Friday, so tomorrow morning, and we'll know better about that. But we're looking forward to getting that week behind us because it should alleviate a lot of her pain a few days or a week or two after next week, and then hopefully she can back off on her pain medicine because she's very disoriented and she sees people that aren't there, and she can't remember what we just told her, and so she's asking me over and over again. And she's like, "Well, we didn't go to MD Anderson this morning." I said, "Oh, yes, we did, hon. We were there 10 o'clock for you to get your X-rays." Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's right. And she can't remember if she's taken her medicine. That's what I really worry about. Is that, like last night at 4 o'clock, she wanted to take some hydromorphone, which is 2 grams is like 7, 8 times stronger than morphine. So she normally takes 2 pills. So that makes it about 14 times more powerful than morphine. But when I put the 2 pills in her hand, she thought I only put one. So she picked up one, put it in her mouth, and raised her other hand, and the other pill went flying. So I had another one that I gave to her, but then I worried that if she found it in the bed, she might think, "Oh, this is the pill that I couldn't find that I didn't take. So let me go ahead and take it." Then she'd have, 25 times as much strength of over morphine with that, and that could cause her to overdose, and that could be dangerous for her life. And then I'd have to wake up and then be able to use I think it's called Naspan or something like that, that should revive her by a spray that goes up her nose. So I don't want to have to do that. So I worried last night from 4 o'clock until this morning that whether or not she would find that pill, but she didn't, and I found it after she got up. So we're good, no problem. But she also is, trying to order things from the grocery store or through Walmart and not ordering everything, forgetting or ordering it twice, not knowing that she already ordered it. So you may have some experience with that, Michael, but between her sister and I, we're trying to keep her from doing, something that's not necessary. And she can't remember if she's done it or not. She doesn't even know if it's morning. What time is it? Oh, it's 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock at night? No, hon, it's 8 o'clock in the morning. Oh, okay. Well, it's Saturday, right? Like, no, it's Thursday. Oh, it's Thursday. Well, do we have anything to do today? Yes, we're getting ready to leave for MD Anderson in about 20 minutes. You need to finish getting ready. Oh, yeah. Why are we going? Okay, so now I have to repeat this oftentimes. So you identify with any of this, Michael?
Yeah, I've been at similar things for quite a while, Gary. That's one of the things that we should, and I know that we will talk about in the podcast. Things that people have to prepare themselves for as they get older.
Yeah, people don't think this is going to happen to them. I never did. I never thought it would happen to Claudia. She's only 60 now. She's just turned 63 years old as of last month. So it's just hard to think, that she's so not herself. She's 48 pounds lighter in weight than she was a year ago. And she's, because of all this heavy pain medicine she's taking, she's not herself. Now she's pretty passive, which is the good thing. And she doesn't resist when I say, "Honey, you already placed the order. Let's put your phone down." "Oh, I don't think I did." Yes, you did. You see, here's the receipt right here. Oh, yeah. Okay. So at least she doesn't get agitated, but she can get a little agitated, at herself, more than getting agitated, at me. But, it's things that people don't think is ever going to happen to them. They expect to just sail off into the sunset, and have a great retirement and go and have fun. And a lot of people get to do that. But one day your health is going to fail you, and you're not going to be able to make good judgment calls on your own, even maybe not even knowing how to take your own medicine or how to manage your affairs. And certainly Claudia's in a very compromised position right now. If she wanted to change her will, I don't think she could, because I don't think she's in a good, stable position in her mind to know what she wants to do for sure. So, but she should get better. A couple of weeks from now, she should be more like her old self. She should be eating better, have a lot less pain, have much more clarity in her mind. So that's what we're hoping for. And this is still going to be a roller coaster. She's going to get better and then she's going to get worse because her mutation is not curable and it's going to attack other parts of her body. And we'll have to be doing radiation in other areas if it's possible. And or the chemo is going to have to work better, or eventually we'll have to go to a clinical trial. So it's not going to get any easier other in short periods of time when she can be more like herself. And so we want to take advantage of those periods of time for her to be able to enjoy something that she wants to do in life versus her brother and sister that want her just to stay home and wait for the end. And, she could live another year or two. So there's no point in not going out to eat because you're worried she's going to get a cold. We can wear a mask and we can go at odd times where there's not other people, but you just can't live in a bubble for however long you have left on this earth, worried about catching a cold or a sore throat or something worse. So we're having to balance all of that. I don't know. I'm sure your wife's immune system is not the strongest either. So you may have some of these same kind of concerns.
Well, we are blessed that Yvonne is relatively healthy. Her main issues are memory related as well, but she, and that makes it kind of dangerous. Um, and no, I'm like you. I never dreamed that some of this could happen. But hey, guess what? What I did, uh, they have this thing going on now about if you had kidney cancer. So I filled out one of those things.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, my daughter says I shouldn't have. Well, hey, I may stand a chance of getting paid. Yeah, yeah, I know it's a money grab. And if they won't get any money off of me unless I get some money, and I'm giving that a shot. Life is, as Forrest Gump said, like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get.
But
And
it's not always as sweet as chocolate. That's the other problem.
no, it is not.
Filled
But we have to be grateful. The day I met Claudia, we were at the hospital.
For me.
Yeah, for you. And it's strange that our lives have, well, they're kind of parallel. The only difference is you got rich and I got darker.
Well, but, we're still breathing the same air. We still have a home to live in. We have enough money to go out to eat every once in a while. And, my the money that I have that is in our portfolio is more for the kids and the grandkids, so you have your home that you can pass on to your daughter or whomever you care to. And, we have a little bit more money than that to be able to give to some of our heirs.
Mm.
Other than that, our lives on a day-to-day basis aren't really that different.
Well, the major difference is that all of my heirs have already gotten their money.
Well, and that's one of the things I'm trying to do as well, is to let my sons benefit while I'm alive, to be able to see them benefit from it, no matter how much money it is, or it's $1,000 or $50,000. I'd rather give it to them alive than dead. So I'm doing some of that right now. I'm just got off the phone this morning with an estate attorney, and my CPA is chiming in, and another estate attorney that works at my private wealth company, and we're bringing in yet one or two more estate planners in their areas of expertise to how I can be gifting money over the balance of my life. So that, and I know you want to get in line, Michael. I haven't adopted you yet, so you don't have to go there.
Oh no. No. In fact, what I was thinking about, Rodrick Dow, CPA, he's going to be our guest today. In fact, in about 15 minutes, and he'll be talking about smart planning for real people, not necessarily the Gary Stones of the world, but the Michael Harrises of the world, about empowering, working families, how to build wealth and shifting our economies. and Rodrick has been beneficial to me. Unfortunately, I I guess you could say I made some emotional decisions rather than some intelligent decisions in taking money out of retirement, trying to help family members who swore they were going to pay me back, Gary.
Yeah, but
And
your money didn't come back green. It just didn't come back.
right, it didn't come back in any way. In fact, one of the persons who I helped out, I saw them the other day, uh, and they saw me, and they took off headed the other way and went and hid until they saw me leave, and then they came back and went where they were going. I said, boy, boy, boy.
They have a
Uh,
guilty conscience there, and they know that they were not a person of their word. And it's a shame when a person's word is not worth what's being said. You know,
yeah, yeah, it is.
you
But
know that you talk about how much evil there is in the world. I don't know if we'll get a chance to talk about it very much on the show, but I understand that with the flooding and the people that died and the children that died, and we're looking at maybe as many as over 200, maybe close to 300 people because of all those that are still missing that are um, not found yet. Some of
mhm.
the people are getting saying that they deserve to die, that they say some really mean and cruel things. There was a couple that were looking for their daughter, and they put their phone number on Facebook for people to call them if they're searching for their daughter to let them know if they find her. And people have been calling them saying, "Yeah, yeah, we found your daughter."
Oh man,
And then they say,
no.
"Oh, yeah, she's dead and she deserved to die and you should die." And they're saying stuff like that to this family. And it's just appalling how much evil people, human beings, can be without showing empathy, sympathy, and concern for people that have lost loved ones in that flood. It can be so mean, while somebody's trying to find their child, 10-year-old, 12-year-old, whatever, and then people call you and lie to you about your child being alive, and then try to make you feel bad because they want to say cruel things to you that just to me that's about as evil as you can be, short of them actually pulling a trigger and killing somebody.
Mhm.
So,
Now,
no.
Gary, I'm going to throw you a curve. At one time you liked Donald Trump, right?
I've liked him better since the big beautiful bill. There's a lot of things I don't like or care about him, and I certainly did not vote for him. So, and I am wondering what maybe your guest thinks about what's happening with Medicaid and the people that are making under $20,000 that are going to lose their health care. You know, is that the case? Because there are people that are handicapped, they actually can't work, that maybe somehow get $10,000, $14,000 a year. Are they going to lose their health care? Because, and I hope there's a cutout, or that Trump will rethink that to the point where there's an opportunity for severely handicapped people to continue to getting, Medicaid. Um, and that they're saying that there's a lot of freeloaders that are claiming that they only make 14,000 or 15,000 to get Medicaid while they're out there making money on tips and or part-time, and they're not claiming it, and or they're working getting cash, doing their job, working on homes or lawns, getting paid in cash, so they don't have to claim how much money they make. And so those people, yeah, they're gaming the system, and they don't, they need to get a job and be higher wage than 15 to $20,000 a year. But if they're actually handicapped or mentally impaired or physically impaired, you can't expect them. So I hope they can see the difference when they shell out the money from Medicaid, or who gets health care and who doesn't. So I don't know where that's going to end up.
Well, I had some, odd feelings about the flood because when I was a kid, you and I came up in the Leave It to Beaver, Father Knows Best, Make Room for Daddy, I
Yeah.
Love Lucy period, and
Yeah.
that was a period pretty much where Black people did not exist on television, except maybe for Amos and Andy and Beulah and a few other people. We um, and and I've never been to a camp like that. Never been to one. But my daughter went to cheerleading camp. That was about the extent of it. And I had always wanted to have a camping experience. Even in the Cub Scouts, I didn't have a uniform. In order to go to the camp, you had to have the uniform. And
Yeah.
my grandparents couldn't afford one and probably couldn't have afforded to send me to camp either. And I just thought about all those persons who had been given the opportunity to come from enough money to go, and to see them lose their lives because governmental agencies decided that a warning system, I guess, wasn't.
It was too expensive. They didn't want to spend the money.
Yeah. And now we have, probably hundreds of people, several hundred people anyway, dead because of cuts. And it just makes me wonder more and more about government, because in the big, beautiful bill, I know, are you in the economic strata where that will help you save money? Or,
What's in the beautiful bill from a tax perspective, you mean?
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know yet, but I think I'm going to get a small benefit. I don't even know if I'm going to qualify for any of the benefits from the Social Security, because they're giving you a tax deduction. I don't know if it ended up being 4,000 or 6,000, but you have to have income, I think, of less than $150,000. And I don't know, based on how my portfolio is managed, what my annual income is as a result of that. I just take money out for however much money we need to live on, but that doesn't mean that that's my income. That comes from selling stocks, and whatever my gain is becomes income. And we always take it out of the least performing stocks, so my gain is as little as possible, and then it doesn't show that I'm making that much money as a result of that. So I don't know if I have a real benefit or not. If I go to a lower tax bracket, I don't know.
Okay, well, I skipped the 8th grade. So, but I went through 11 years of public schooling before I went to college. And do you know that nowhere in my public schooling, elementary, junior high school, did we ever get taught anything about the stock market, anything about money management or anything?
You get taught anything? Yeah, yeah.
Did you get taught?
No, no. They didn't even teach me how to balance a checkbook. And then I never. I saw. It seemed to me, I remember savings accounts being 5.25, like forever, but that's because I saw a sign in a bank. I don't even think I really knew what that meant.
So why do you think that they don't teach us about finance and money and stuff in
No,
school?
it's a huge mistake. It's not. That's a practical thing you need to learn. Even so much of how to clean a house. I mean, they should teach you things so that you know how to not just pile your clothes up and leave your bed unmade. What's the etiquette that you should do as far as how you should live a clean life. Know how to wash your clothes, as well as how to have a savings account, a checking account, and personal finance. So that's why I told my sons, and like I have mentioned before, only one of my sons took a personal finance class in college. And man, that has paid dividends for him, because he started even in high school, he was good about trying to save his money from working at a marble slab or a TCBY, or he liked working at ice cream stores, free ice cream. But anyway, he liked working there. And he even actually wanted to open an ice cream store when he got older. But of course, he went into college and changed it for broadcasting and journalism and went another direction. But he has built quite a nice portfolio for himself, substantial. I mean, I'm talking well over $100,000, beginning with the money he made in high school and through college. And he always wanted to work. I never told him he had to work. He didn't need to work. I paid for everything. But any work that he did, he was able to bank that, or if he wanted to splurge and spend some of it. But he didn't. He saved almost his first nickel that he may ever made. And he's got hundreds of thousands of dollars now as a result of that discipline. And it's not because he's made a lot of money. He was making minimum wage. It was long before $12 an hour or $15 an hour. So I have to hand it to him. And that one class and me encouraging him to do it has made that difference. Neither of my other two sons ever did that. And do they have that sort of a separate portfolio? No, they only have what I've given them over their lifetime.
Now, do you think that this is actually a part of the scheme by those who are in control to make sure that they stay rich and most of us stay poor?
It's one of the things I've told my sons. I said, if you can distinguish yourself from your peers, then you're going to have success in life and move up in life. If you can manage your finances and build some security with that, you're going to have less stress, less worry, because one of the biggest reasons for divorce is finances. The biggest reason for second divorces is children from a previous marriage. But a lot of couples argue over finances all the time. They don't know how they're going to. And so many people work paycheck to paycheck, and it's really unnecessary. No matter how much money somebody is making, but I understand that we say to ourselves, I can't afford to save any money because I don't make enough to save any, and you're kind of stuck there. And if you don't learn about how to go about that, or even where to put the money, if you did have an extra $500 or $1,000, you're going to you're going to justify spending it. So there's a learning curve that people have to go through on how to manage money. And the only place I know to do that is in a personal finance class that you can get through college. And you can learn that on a website. You don't have to go to, a regular college every 3 days, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or whenever they have the classes. You can do it online, and it's not expensive. So, do yourself a favor and learn this stuff so that you're not dependent on other people and you end up spending all your money and not having any retirement. I know you made some investments with your retirement, so you're not totally uneducated on that part because you had some money to be able to lose. So, but unfortunately you lost it by some unscrupulous people that were giving you what you thought was a great opportunity that turned out to be, a dry hole, as we say in the oil business. There was no oil down there. You weren't clamp it, and you weren't finding gold in them there hills. So as my father was in the oil business, he drilled many a dry hole trying to get rich. And I'm sorry, but that's just not the way to do it.
So doing it through investments is the way to go.
I'm afraid so. And that's the only way I know. And maybe the tax boss here will have some other ideas for us on how else people can build, equity. And you can do that in a house. It just doesn't grow as fast as the stock market.
Plus, if you sell the house, you have to find another place to live.
And it's more expensive wherever else you buy. And so you have to really lower your standards for what you can afford then for where you move to. So who wants to do that?
All right, well, we're trying to get the tax boss on now. But okay, I heard something. Rodrick, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what's up, dude? How you doing? You're on with Michael Harris.
How are you?
And Gary Stone on our podcast, Person to Person. We're okay. You're okay?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, we were talking a little bit about money, smart planning for real people, empowering working families, and in this shifting economy, and so many other things that we want to talk with you about today. Because I know one thing, Rodrick Dow knows money.
A little bit.
Okay, well, Gary, say hello to Rodrick. Can you hear him? Everything good?
You hear him? Yes. Can't see him, but I can hear him. I don't think.
Well, Rodrick's too pretty to put on with us.
Well, I figured as much. Yeah.
Yeah. So we decided to block him. We want people to think we're cute. They'd be looking and saying, "Whoa, look at Rodrick Dow." Roderick didn't laugh at my joke, but that's okay. Roderick.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, why don't you give us the pleasure of giving our listeners a bit of background as to who you are and what you do.
Okay, my name is Rodrick Dow. The name of my company is Rodrick Dow PC. I'm in Northwest Houston in the Heights. I concentrate on 3 areas. Number one, investment. I work with people when they're retiring, changing jobs, laid off, company merger, or just want to invest the money. We roll over 401ks, 403bs, pensions, profit sharing, IRA, ESOPs, and other employer-sponsored retirement plans. That's one area, investment. The next area is IRS, Internal Revenue Service, issues, problems, whatever other issue you may have with the IRS. And the last is income tax separation. So we'll be glad to assist you with any of those areas. If there's anything that we can do for you. We know the IRS is very busy right now. They have millions of letters that they're sending out. They're sending them out in waves. They're not sending them all out at one time because they don't have the manpower to be able to answer all of those calls. And income tax is pretty self-explanatory. You're required to file an income tax return. And investments, we like to work with you if you're retiring, changing jobs, laid off. And there's another thing called in-service distributions. That's where when you're 59 and a half, a lot of organizations will allow you to roll your money out. You can roll it out and continue to invest in the 401k, 403b, or other employer-sponsored retirement plans. And we'd be glad to assist you with that because a lot of times when you go to work, and some of us first-timers, first generation, they put it out there and we don't necessarily know what we're doing or what to do with it. Some people just like, I'm not going to do that. Some people, I've even heard people say, I don't believe they're going to give you money and match the money that I put in. So first thing is just kind of educating a lot of people. And we'll be glad to assist you with that if you're in those plans and you're already at retirement age. That doesn't mean you have to actually retire. You can just be at the 59 and a half, and that way it's something called an in-service distribution. What you want to do is ask your employer if they allow in-service distributions. And once again, what that is you're currently working and you reach that age, and they will allow you to roll your money out. And you may say, why should I roll my money out? Well, good question. One, you get the benefit of my services a lot of times at no additional cost, and expertise to be able to help you navigate the investment waters. Because when they give it to you at the workforce, they generally just put it out there. It's up to you whether you get in it or not, and it's up to you to make your own choices and selections and that, and you may or may not know the correct thing to do. We're just here to try to assist you. And I'm a native Houstonian. I'm told that's rare. I went away to Texas A&I. It's not called Texas A&M Kingsville. When I went to Texas A&I University, down in Kingsville, Texas, small school. I went down there, played tennis, but that was many years, many pounds ago. So haven't been there in tennis court in I don't know how many years. But anyway, when people don't know about Texas A&I, generally say Darryl Green, fastest man in the NFL. I was there when he was there. I'd like to say he did a little better in football than I did in tennis. So, and then I came back to Houston. I bounced around in corporate America a little bit, worked for a lot of multi-billion-dollar energy companies, and I guess that wasn't a good fit for me. And so I ended up in business for myself, and here I am now. I'm Rodrick. 713-862-4332, 713-862-4332. We'll be glad to assist you.
All right.
And whatever financial needs you may have.
Well, when you talk about smart planning, Gary thinks he's pretty smart. Right, Gary?
Well, on a personal
I can't hear him.
yes.
You can't hear him?
No.
Can you hear me? No?
I only hear you.
Oh,
Okay, well, we'll have to fix that because Gary knows more about money than any, certainly that I do.
Looking at the screen, I see an X through the audio and through the video under his square where his name of X boss is. And when I click on it,
I hear something, but it's real sketchy. I can barely hear it. It sounds distant and it's kind of scratchy. I hear something, but I can't make out any of the words.
Okay, well, we'll keep working on it. We'll work on it as we uh, continue going because one thing that Alessandra is she is very deft at doing, she has a great deal of depth
maybe you can
and
hear me now.
doing things like that. Hmm?
Can you hear me now? Because I see that the audio is now working under his name, so maybe he can hear me better now. I know the video.
Right, I hear somebody now, but I can't really make out the words. I hear talking like I did before, but I can't really make out the words of what they're saying.
Well, that's pretty odd.
Okay.
Now it went lower. It went lower, so I don't hear it anymore.
Okay. Well, what we'll do, as we figured out, I'll just talk to you, Rodrick, as Alessandra works on getting the sound right. This is our first full week, right? Yeah. This is our first week. We did
Okay. Congratulations.
Yeah, we did some things last week and the week before, but anyway, let's talk about what we should do because I've worked with Rodrick over the years, but like I said, I made some, I guess you could say, some bad decisions and took out money early, loaning money, doing this, that, and the other. And how do we, as I guess you could say, get the mindset to actually save, and what is the best way to actually get it done, and I guess to have not have people know that you have any assets so that they won't come trying to get them from you.
Well, the way you keep them from knowing that you have any assets and trying to get them from you is don't tell them. You know, that's kind of, if you don't tell people, they don't really know. And if you tell a lot of people, people will spend your money faster than they will their own. It's kind of like a client I have, actually a very wealthy client. And she was telling me, we were talking one day, and we were talking about going out to eat. And as I usually do, interrupt people before they finish their thought. And I was like, yeah, you take somebody out to eat, you don't want to tell them that you're paying until after the meal. And she said, yeah, I made that mistake. And she said that she'd taken someone out and they ordered, and she told them she was going to be buying. She said that the person basically ordered like the menu, maybe half the menu and a lot of things to go. And I'm like, yeah, because if you tell someone you're paying before, they're going to be ordering on your dollar faster than if you tell them after the meal and the check comes, they ordered off of their own dollar. So it's a lot of things about finance like that you have to do. You know, generally people have their own best interest in mind. So if you're going to do something to help someone, you want to make sure that you're doing that and not getting a. And someone else on the line, they text me and says that they can't really hear. So anyway, to keep people from knowing you have money, just don't tell them. Unless you do over-the-top things, it's kind of hard to tell because just because the person has a very expensive car, that doesn't mean that they have money. They could be in debt up to the point of where they have negative equity in that car. So it's kind of hard. In other words, I've heard people say, fake it until you make it. Well, if you're doing that, you know, you're just creating a lot of financial problems, and that's not really building network. I've always been into building networks, doing things that build networks. And a lot of things that we consume are not necessarily building networks. Like a car, you buy a new car, and I understand as soon as you drive it off the lot, you lost quite a bit of equity in that vehicle. So unless you put a sizable down payment on, you may already have negative equity, which would drive down your net worth when you bought that car, because it's worth one thing when you in the showroom, when you drive it off the lot, it's worth a little bit less. And I'm told sometimes considerably less. So the biggest thing from people knowing you got money, don't look like you have money. I'll give an example. That was a person who came into my office decades ago. I guess I'm aging myself. But he just looked almost just a step above a homeless person. You know, he was a big fellow, and like we are sometimes, our shirts don't close that good, and his shirt was kind of open. You know, it was buttoned, but it was kind of, like too little, it didn't reach, so it was kind of pulling apart, and he just looked kind of rough and everything. And he didn't look like he had anything. I mean, but at my office, we treat everybody. I used to say like Donald Trump, when people, well, I'm not going to get into politics, but I used to say we treat everybody like Donald Trump at my office. Basically, you just treat everybody very, very well at my office. And when he came in, actually come to find out, the guy was like a multi-millionaire. So you can't always tell what someone has by the way that they look. And then I've had other clients, and they look like $1 million. And don't get me wrong, I've had clients who look like $1 million and got $1 million. But I've had other clients who look like $1 million and they have a negative net worth. So it's kind of hard. So if you don't want to portray that, if you don't want people to know you got money, don't show you got money. Because sometimes when people show they got money, they really don't have it. Kind of goes back to something my dad used to say, it's not what you make, it's what you do with what you make.
All right, well, let's talk about what we can do with it to make it grow. Gary, I was hoping, since he had also done that you all would be able to have some.
You still can't hear me well?
Now I can't hear you anymore either.
You can't hear me anymore?
I hear you now.
Okay, so Gary, let's hear from you.
Well, so
now I'm not sure what this means, but on my screen I have like 3 boxes. One with your daughter, one with me, and one with the person who also logged in, and they said they couldn't really hear clearly. I don't have a box for Gary. I just have those 3 boxes. And someone, I guess, is going, because right now it has a green box around me. And then when you talk, it goes to a green box around Miss Harris. And it's a little hand on it. I guess, I don't know if they're grabbing it, moving it from box to box. And I guess, I don't know if you can only hear when the box is around me, because right now the box is around me. I'm not sure if that has anything to do with it. But I don't know if it has anything to do with me not being able to hear him, because it's only 3 boxes.
Okay. Well, Rodrick, we'll work that out.
Now the box is around you because you're talking. Now the box is on me because I'm talking.
Okay.
So I'm not sure. Now it's on Miss Harris.
So
now it's on me.
Let me mention this. There is another one, like somebody's logged in, an Angela Dow.
Yeah, that's who I was saying logged in, but they couldn't hear. I only have these 3 boxes that I can see.
Who is that?
Yeah, well, Angela's mic is muted. Is she going to be joining or having something to say so we can test her out and see if we can actually hear her?
No, she won't. She won't be saying anything. I could tell her to turn the mic on for a test.
Well, no.
She won't be.
Yeah, well, if she's not saying anything, it's good. She doesn't have to, do anything. But other than that, I've tested it on both platforms, both on our YouTube Live and the Facebook Live, and I hear y'all very well. I can hear Gary, you, Dad, and Rodrick. So we'll just kind of run it, as a flow, and maybe what you can do. You cannot say translate, but like, hey, Rodrick, what Gary was expanding on, and you kind of do a brief, and then Roger can, go from that, Doug.
And shout out to Sidney McKinney. What's up, Sid? Sid Services. Ronald Muhammad, Richard Cobb, and James Joseph, and a host of others who have been on and hopefully will be back on, or whose names will show up. And we will be back on tomorrow. Gary.
Okay, well, you can ask him, what does he think about people picking individual stocks versus index funds versus
so what I would say, you definitely
ETFs.
like to accumulate money, start young. Even like a child, an infant, newborn baby, even, especially if you have a business, find a way to have them generate income. Because you can imagine these children that are on these shows. Someone asked me if there's an age. There's no age that you pay tax. Little bitty babies. I remember they had some twin girls on TV. They're very, very wealthy right now. I think they're worth in the hundreds of millions of dollars. It was two of them. They were twins, but they only worked part-time. I was reading about them later. But when they were very, very little, they had to pay an income tax. They had to file an income tax. Obviously, they didn't file it themselves. There's no age on income tax. So I'm going at to say, if you have a business and you have a child, they were in the movies making, I'm sure, a lot more money, but you could find a way to pay your child, put it in a Roth IRA, and then that money has decades to grow. And chances are, when they get to be older, retirement age, they have quite a sum of money. And they can invest it pretty conservatively, and they still have that money to grow quite a bit. I don't know if you can hear me now. I just see.
Yeah, we can hear you, Rodrick.
I don't see a green box around it anymore.
We hear you. Let's not get caught up on boxes. Okay. And Gary, did you have something else?
Well, I was saying that maybe he could explain what his general recommendation is. Yeah, well, Michael's going to repeat what I'm saying. Okay, so maybe you should tell him just to wait, let me finish, and then you can repeat what I'm saying.
Okay, so let me hear Gary, and then I'll repeat it for you. Gary?
Okay, so what he thinks about people picking individual stocks versus putting money in a index fund, a mutual fund, an ETF.
What do you think about people picking stock or putting it in index funds, things like that?
The thing with investing is the more return you want to make, the more risk you got to take. Obviously, if you pick a stock and it goes to the top, that's going to make more than an index. But if you pick a stock and it doesn't do too good, it's going to lose more than an index. So the index gives you a certain amount of diversification. So the general rule, the more return you want to make, the more risk you got to take. So the individual stock would be riskier. It'll be a bigger return, but also a potential bigger loss. Those index funds, S&P 500, it kind of tells the U.S. So if you got confidence in the U.S., do an index fund. That would be something I would maybe say you do for the child with the Roth. I mean, you're betting on America. You get them an index fund, a low-cost index fund, and like the S&P 500, which is basically 500 stocks of American companies. It's done pretty well. You're going to have up and down years, but it's done pretty well. I don't want to quote any percentages or whatever, but I don't know, maybe somewhere around 8-9% or so over many, many decades. So if you get that and you put that into a calculator and you do that from someone from 3 months old to a year old up until the time their retirement age, like 60, you probably have 7 figures pretty, especially if you continue to contribute. You really don't have to put money in like the first few years and it'll just grow. Because the thing, compounding, time and compounding is what makes money grow. It's like you started early and you got a lot of years for it to compound.
Gary?
Well, all she has is the catheter for draining her lung.
Okay, Gary's talking to someone about his wife's medical
Yeah. So no, she doesn't have any
situation.
body.
Okay. Well, this is our second week, and this is a learning process. Alessandra is educating me about doing a podcast. She's been saying, Dad, you need to do this. And we are working on it. Gary and I, Rodrick and so forth. We're trying to build something, of course, that deals with all aspects of life. Let's go back just a little bit and ask this question. So, Rodrick, you're basically saying that we should start saving for our children early on.
Yes, yes. Time is your greatest asset when it comes to money. More than even that rate of return that you get. If you got a lot of time, and it's like when I used to be on the radio, I used to always say, a good man leaveth that inheritance to his children's children, and the wealth of the sinner is laid up for the just. So when you're dealing with younger people, and a lot of times we didn't have that knowledge to know what to do, and we didn't have anyone who could teach us that knowledge. But since you have that knowledge, you may not be able to benefit from the decades of savings, but people in your family, friends, close circles, they should be able to benefit from that knowledge of knowing just constantly save. One of the things I would do is, in my day, it was dating myself again. It was like reading and books and all like that. Nowadays, especially with the AI, you can just go in and I would say get a book or just Google like dollar cost average. Read up on that dollar cost average and you'll see the power that compounding has. Just putting a little bit in each month, each quarter, each year, each week, or however you want to do it, and you'd be amazed. They probably got AI tools that will do projections for you. In our days, we had to use calculators or something, but I'm sure they have AI tools that will do those calculations for you.
Gary?
Okay, I'm on them put $100 a month in for the first 5 years, and then doing average of that of whatever the S&P is done. Past performance, obviously, there's no guarantee of future performance. So, and just see what it get, and you'd be amazed with those number of years that little bit of money you put in would grow so big.
Okay.
And not only that, if you have a business, you hire your child, it's a deductible item.
All right.
Well, see that when you're growing at 7-8%, which is about generally the best you can expect from a diversified portfolio. You might have a different opinion, think that sometimes it can grow higher than that. But on the average, you look out over 30 years, it's probably going to be anywhere from 7 to 8%. But that means that you can't double your money, but about once every 12 years. So if you put in $1,000, you wait 12 years to get $2,000. So what I've done is I primarily invested in stock early on because that's where I worked and I was able to buy that stock. And then I'd use 80 to 85% of my diversified that grows 7-8% with stocks that are 15-20% of the portfolio that can grow, hopefully.
I don't know if you're talking, but I can't hear you, and I'm not sure if you can hear me.
No, Michael, just tell me you're going to repeat whatever I say.
Okay. No, what we're doing is, I know you can't hear him, but he's supplying information as well. So when he finishes, I'll let you know. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I'm sorry about that, but again, we're working. This is something new for us.
Yeah. So can you just say again kind of what I just said so he can hear it, see what he thinks about using, say, 20% of your portfolio in individual stocks that have a propensity to grow maybe 35% a year versus, 80% or less of your diversified portfolio that's going to grow 7 or 8%. Is that a good strategy?
Yeah, he was just talking about strategy. And look, I can't repeat exactly what you said. I am listening, but I also have distraction.
Your daughter can do it.
Yes, I can. But I didn't know he was not listening.
I was listening.
Can you just run it one more time and then I'll repeat it?
All right. 75% of your portfolio diversified in all kinds of stocks and bonds and stocks of all kinds, right? Mutual funds, ETFs, all of that stuff. Diversified. 75%, right? To 80%. Growing, generally speaking, should be 7-8% a year. Then the balance of that, the 20-25% that's left, you put it in individual stocks that you think are going to do good in the future that are going to be growing more like 35%. So now your overall growth can be much more than 7 or 8%. And that could end up being 10-15% a year. Is that a good strategy?
So he's talking about, hey Rodrick, he's talking about obviously having a portfolio, and with it being there's the best strategy of diversifying it. The example is I think about 75%, and that being taken across what was the last number you mentioned, Gary?
Well, it should grow 7-8%. You just put it in as diversified funds, ETFs, stocks, whatever. You're putting it into groups of stocks, so you kind of protect your downside, but it doesn't over deliver on the upside, other than combined might be 7-8%.
Okay. So just really, obviously it growing. Obviously, if you have 75%, the goal is have it growing 7 to 8%. And just wanted to know, what's your thoughts on a strategy, or, since that's going to be moving into different, once it is growing, you're moving into different groups. So we just wanted to get your insight on, when it comes to diversifying.
Well, yeah, but then the other 25.
Yeah, there will be a different strategy for every person, depending on their risk tolerance, their needs, what it is they're trying to accomplish, and their time horizon. Because some people are okay, because remember, the more return you want to make, the more risk you got to take. So some people are okay with, my portfolio is going to go down 20% because the market tanks, but I have confidence in it. I'm going to keep putting money in because I know it's going to come back. And some people are like, I don't want to lose one penny. So you'd have to invest the person who's comfortable with the risk one way, and you'd have to invest the person who doesn't want to lose any of their money a different way. So every person is going to be different. It's called they call it know your customer. I say know your client. You have to know your client to know what their risk tolerance is, what their financial goals are, and you tailor plans for them. Because some people may be retired and they're like, okay, I don't want to take any more risks. This is what I got to live off for the rest of my life. Another person may be 20. It's like, hey, I want to go for the moon. I don't care about ups and downs. I just want to get the most I can. Then you invest them more aggressively. So time horizon, risk tolerance, all that has to do with how you invest the person. There's no one cookie cutter method that works for everybody. Everybody's different. You have to look at each person individually and analyze their situation.
All right, Rodrick, tell us your phone number, where people, can give you a call, or so people can give you a call. Give us your address so that they'll know what part of town you are in. And I want to thank you for participating today. And it just shows us that we still have a little more work to do, because the last show we did, we were able to get everybody on mix. Yeah, and no blame here. It's, it's a learning curve. It's a learning curve. And so,
right. I'm at 713-862-4332, 713-862-4332. I'm Northwest Houston in the Heights area. I do investments. We roll over people's money when they retire. Teacher retirement system, that's education. Some hospitals are in teacher retirement system, or energy industry, the city, and all those. We're well versed and done those before. We're very familiar with the drop program with the city. We're familiar with the TRS, the different options in the 1 year, 2 year, 3 year lifetime. We're familiar with a lot. We've done lots of people in the energy industry. So we're familiar with a lot of different plans. And like I say, the thing, if you're still working at 59 and a half, ask your employer if they're like, and many years ago, not that many did it, but now lots of organizations are doing it. and you just have to call them and ask them, do they allow in-service distribution? That's where when you're 59 and a half, they'll let you roll your money out. You still keep contributing, but you get to roll it out in case you want to use some, if you wanted to have another different investment. In other words, don't have all your eggs in one basket. I'm Rodrick, 713-862-4332, 713-862-4332. And obviously, if you have an IRS issue, we don't recommend you speak to the IRS yourself. We recommend professional representation. So we'll be glad to assist you in that area also.
All right. Well, thanks, Rodrick. God bless and keep you, and we'll talk to you later.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Gary Stone is on the phone from his home. I'm here at home, and Alessandra is next to me. I'm sitting on the couch, and we are doing the Gary Stone, Michael Harris podcast. Stone Cold Gary Stone.
Yes, sir. What do you think?
Well, I want to get back to this situation with the flooding and our government, the state of Texas. We've been talking a whole bunch about providing what was that? Alessandra showed me Ronald Muhammad's number, so it kind of threw me up. I thought he had okay. Well, should there be an immediate investigation into why notice was not received by the Mystic Corp? Yeah, I was going back to that, and that's where I wanted to return. Okay, it looked like Corp to me. I can't see. My daughter's so critical. Boy. But you are. I thought it said Corp, but it's Mystic Camp. Gary.
Yep.
What do you think?
Well, certainly, we've known that area of Texas from the days that I lived in Austin, back in the 70s, that was a flood zone, and that people are used to that river flooding regularly, where that's why they, have their homes situated where they are, thinking that it would ever get as high as their home is, and not expecting to have a flood like this. And they should have learned their lesson back in, I think it was 1978 when it flooded and some people died. But then they decided they couldn't afford to put in a siren or notification system. And that just cost us 200-300 people's lives. That's many years later. So it takes a tragedy like this to get the state and the local counties and cities and towns in the area and the residents to be willing to fund something like this, to be able to have that. But generally speaking, when you ask people to fund for security, thinking that something is not going to happen for another 20, 30 years, they don't want to spend the money. So it's not surprising there wouldn't be a better system than the Weather Service alerting people through their telephones. But, it's hard to get alerted at 4 a.m. when you're asleep and you have your phone off, unless that warning can come through regardless, unless you have it completely turned off rather than just being charged, if there's a way to break through that. But not everybody has that. And you have bad cell phone coverage in that area. So it was just a disaster waiting to happen. So now I suspect that it will get funded. When you have over, as many as up to 300 people dying, you think that would be a disaster enough to get a defense system in, or people rethink how they build, around a river like that, moving the property lines back, and them getting funded to be able to afford to rebuild in a safer way. Now, I've seen that area. I know people like to play down there. I've floated down the Guadalupe River, and I've been on an inner tube and partying and doing all of that back in my 20s, back in 1975 and 76. But, didn't realize what a danger that could be. So now maybe they'll get it done. But it's a shame that it takes a disaster. It takes 9/11 to happen. It takes all these huge disasters before we do anything. And then we have short memories because you have another generation coming up and they're looking for cost savings, or they're thinking nothing's going to happen and not maybe on their watch. And then they get surprised when something does happen. So, we can point fingers, but it's a shame that the government, at least Trump, did bring in FEMA rather than just leaving it up to the state. Of course, this is Texas, a Republican state. I don't know what he would do if it was a Democratic state. Might not do as much. I don't know. Knowing him, the way we see about him being portrayed on how he makes decisions on the news. But in any event, hopefully this won't happen again. I mean, how many times do we want to hear when disasters occur that we're going to do something that's never going to let this happen again, yet disasters keep happening over and over again. We can't get enough vision and foresight to keep it from happening.
Okay, vision and foresight. Define that for me.
Well, when it's happened once from years ago, you think that would improve your vision. You don't have to be a visionary to know when you're in a flood district and the chances of it flooding. Maybe it's hard to imagine, 26 feet of water coming at you like it might when you're surfing in Hawaii. To think that would happen is almost unthinkable. But yet they still had the history of what happened back in the 1970s. To then still not do anything is appalling. And it's certainly, if you're going to point the fingers at anybody, it's the people that were running the government at that time that ended up, that group of people that decided it was too expensive to put in a sound alarm system. We can point the finger at them for the cost of the death of those folks. At the same time, all the municipalities along there, nobody was, saying that they needed to do anything. It'd gone silent for decades. So, I guess, is there nobody to blame? And as Greg Abbott, our governor, says, he doesn't want to be blaming people. He wants to decide what we're going to do in the future. Okay, good. But then let's do something and not let time go by and our memories get short and our money needs overrule safety for a person's life. Because you would think that knowing that people have died now in two huge disasters that happen in the same area, that we would do enough to protect that not from happening again, or just condemn the area and shut it down and don't let anybody go in there and own any property, but that's too harsh. I'm going to lose all the money I had. What about this 100-year-old, nightclub where people like to two-step and dance? People want us to rebuild it. Well, doing the same thing and waiting for thinking that the next flood won't come for 100 years, is wishful thinking, and it shows poor vision, so our eyes should be more wide open and clear focused on what we need to do to keep that from happening. How many small children have to die before it tugs on your heart enough to protect them?
Yeah. Well, they were talking about a system, being done, but it never was done. And my thoughts go back to, again, government and how government prioritizes things. Our governor, he prioritized giving money to private schools, taking children out of public schools. And what is it, $10,000 a year, I think, is the floor that they can get. I don't know, maybe it's the max that they can get. But when you see lives at risk, and like you said, it's happened before, people have been asking for it, but they did not have the money to do it. Do you think our government, our state government, is prioritizing things correctly?
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it, but they're going to do what they think gets them reelected. And, whatever the issue is at the moment when they're trying to fundraise. So what do you do?
All right, but you're dealing with, well, I never went to a camp. Did you ever go to a camp?
One time I went to a camp.
Where was that?
Well, it was, it was so long ago. I was like in 7th grade or something. And I went to a camp for about a week. And,
I have no idea of what it cost back then.
no, it couldn't have cost much. Might have been a church camp where you didn't have to pay anything, but just go.
Okay.
I don't think.
My daughter did cheerleading camps and things like that. And the idea that someone can know that this can happen and people are asking about sirens, warning lights, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know exactly what they were trying to get done there, but when people cannot afford to do that, but how much did we spend on the president's birthday parade that was also tied to some other military? What was that? Do you remember what that was? But I think they spent like
parade he did for his birthday and the beginning of the 250th anniversary of the country.
Yeah, I think it was like $10 million that they spent on that parade.
Yeah, well, no, he spent more than that. It was 30 million.
30 million. And I just wonder, how does that work? The president has that kind of authority where he can just spend money on whatever he wants to.
Well, Michael, it looks like I'm going to have to go because Claudia's sister says that we have to take her to the emergency room. And apparently the doctor's worried about something with her confusion.
Okay.
So I'm going to have to sign off.
All right.
Good luck with all of that and carry on. I'll see you later.
All right. We'll be praying for Claudia and for you too. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. Are we set up to take calls? No? Okay. Well, the number is 832-564-9609. 832-564-9609. You all have been messaging. Now you can actually give us a call. 832-564-9609 is the person-to-person podcast. Yep, this is our second or third. I think this is our third podcast, and I know we're still working on getting the bugs out, etc. Working on things. Alessandra is here with me, and she's been involved in a number of things. Any things that you want to tell people about?
I think what has to be factored in understanding logic for how a man such as this president moves. Anticipate the extreme always, and that will help you. You don't have to understand the decisions that are being made or even the justifications of how the money is spent. But I believe that until you've had access to to wealth in the way that some people have, you are responsible for expanding your perspective and processing. And what I mean by that is it's about finding better questions to ask. So logically, because we know in the administration, especially the Obama administration, none of this behavior would have been warranted because of the double standards or the restrictions that are held to what President Obama has to do and what he can do. Also, too, is expanding the conversation, knowing the money that he spent, even if you don't have the exact dollar. It is doing a breakdown of what that money could actually look like and be dispersed at. Meaning, I've sat in on many of these meetings locally, especially in the Dallas area. And the problem with actually getting things done is the red tape and the boldness that lacks from individuals. So if you can learn anything, it's not even really a boldness, because boldness, I feel, has a different, a different value, but it's the audacity that he decided to spend that type of money, knowing how that money can be allocated. So once you decide to see the man for who he is showing you, it's literally like somebody, he's no longer hiding in plain sight. This term is about that. I think that we can move past, can that be done, and say, it's going to be done. And when it happens is, how do you expand the conversation, connect it from a level of local experience? Like right now, there's question mark about like Riley Ellis, from my understanding, and some artwork or something that happened. I don't know if you remember that story.
For sure.
Okay. So, it's about tying in things and finding the parallels of this behavior of people in power. And it is necessary, if you're going to have the conversation, you can make a touch point to what's happened, but we have to move past and expect this type of behavior to continue to happen. And it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So I just wanted to offer that up, where a person in my demographic, in my generation, is not so appalled by this behavior. Once you have seen exactly what this man has shown you, meaning the current president, then you're able to go about it in a way that, one, your main responsibility is, how can you find the benefit to to add value to your life? Because if you ask a good question, are they purposely doing it? Is this a part of their strategy? And reality is, the goal is to keep people within a poor mentality. So my hope is that kind of giving that expanded perspective will help say, okay, let's look at things on a local level. And when we think about money and how it's being spent in our own cities, what are things, if that type of dollars were able to be funneled through or accessible, how could we actually have a better city? And we know right now there's a lot of things that very much so need to be improved upon. And also we know that on a local level, other people need to be a part of the conversation, because once you get into the political career state of things, it becomes about the corruption. And this generation of Gen Z, and younger, they're wanting no more rhetoric behind what's happening, but more so, hey, what's the connector? Because we can sit here and complain, and we can sit here and be just appalled. But at the end of the day, I always speak to this, is when you all who have had so much wisdom to offer, when you all are no longer here, we still have to live in this society.
Okay. The number here, 832-564-9609, 832-564-9609. And the phone is right here. All you have to do is give us a call, and we'd be more than happy to talk to you. Hello, Sydney McKinney from Sid Services. There's Sherman Smith Jr. What's up, Sherman? And Ronald Muhammad Clem Trotter. Clem, I love that name, Clem Trotter. Anyway, there's Richard Cobb, James Joseph as well. And of course, if you would like to converse with me, ring that number, 832-564-9609. All right. Now, we are only going to be on another 10 minutes or so. We get off at 3:30 today. So if you want to give us a call, go ahead and give it now. Now, when I was a kid, I was telling you earlier that I was in the Boy Scouts, but I never had a Boy Scouts uniform because I couldn't afford one. And I had wanted to go on, one of these camping trips, going out to do this and the other. and we had vacation Bible school and other things, but I never did go to a camp out. Didn't have a uniform, this, that, or the other. And I can only feel for these families. Although, note that I haven't seen, has anyone seen anybody, have you seen anybody Black? No? No, to you it may not be relevant, but to me it is. Um, Gary talked about going up there. Is that something that that anybody out there has done? Have you all been there and experienced it?
If you haven't been to a camp, you've been camping. You've been in the outdoors. I mean, this is at the end of the day, it's a human matter. It is, one thing when I think about the appreciation that I have for, what Dallas, there is a warning system, and it's tested every month. But it actually is functional. There's many times when there's tornado warnings and things of that nature. I think that, it's easy it doesn't matter if, all identified races were a part of this camp. It's the reality of the current government, and it's testing the water. And it's, meaning saying, okay, let's check the pulse on this. So it's easy to get distracted by, the race, but we really need to project the behaviors of this current government. And I think it's very interesting if you want to talk about, especially Abbott, having things to say, and how his analogy, how he referenced football. And I don't know if you saw that little clip that he did, but it's really the humanizing of matters, that are people being so, with no empathy, no compassion. Like, let's talk about those things. And
but that's where I was really heading, because it seemed like all of these were Caucasians.
Well,
and
but let's be true. Let's say we know the disadvantages and the plight that minority communities face. But we know also, in America has shown that unless it does happen to the white race, if it's not happening, then nothing gets done. So, maybe that could be something to expand upon in the conversation of, it doesn't matter what race, it wouldn't have been better if it was a different race. And yes, we identify prominently that this was white, because the connection with what one of these camps looks like. Camp Mystic is about, so it's, families with, great access. I mean, they just did an interview about someone that attended that may have been in one of the past president's family member. I don't know if you saw that on TV recently. So we know it's one of those accessible camps, but the humanizing of what this moment really means is saying, hey, we are facing a government that is no longer alluding to that. They are on the fence about what they care about, and it's so brash right now. And what can we do to equip ourselves, to manage through? Because we are not even done with the year, and then we have 3 more years of things that we're facing. What we don't want to become is hardened. We don't want to become normalized to this behavior, because that continues to take out the humanitarian, that human softness that we should all have with each other.
Oh no, and I wasn't. And the reason I brought it up is that if you are not concerned about, I guess you could say, the safety of the elite or the semi-elite, then who are you concerned about?
But if we look at who he's defining of the world that he wants to have and approve of, that's the reason why it's such a big issue right now. And, white people are speaking up more, because they are not agreeing. And I'm not saying all in the masses, they're not agreeing with the Trump's vision, but he also is good at smoke and mirrors.
But in this case, I was talking about Abbott.
Oh, well, excuse me. I didn't know who you were talking about. I was just
Yeah, well,
generalizing.
but they're part of the same.
Right, but they're the same mentality. And now he can like be in your face about it, but it's always been who he has been at the core.
And it's just difficult for me to believe that they would let something like this happen when people have been saying that they need a system, because the people who are visiting there are going there are not necessarily poor people.
Right, but then it's also in tragedy, in moments such as despair, that solution comes about. And to me, I think that the healing side of it is, and the truth side of it is, find and be these solutions, and not, you can't make someone care and do right by you, but you can rally and organize. And as a movement, you can say, just like the Amber Alert and how that happened, how that came to be, what happened to that parent who created the Amber Alert. So I think that it's very unfortunate the times that we are in, but it's almost like, okay, it's literally like, how when they say you get that like first shock of like jumping in the pool and it's so cold, and then it like wakes you up and puts you in, a quick moment, and you're like, okay, I'm here. That's where.
No, I was just going to say, I was just thinking about the $10,000 for private school that Governor Abbott was pushing and finally got through the legislature, so that children who are in private school, get that stipend from the state of Texas.
What, school or something, school choice?
Yeah, and many of those people are the ones who can afford to send their children off to camps, and I just wonder how you can prioritize that over saving their lives. That's what I'm just trying to figure that.
But see, I don't like. It's easy because it's hard. It may be like you're still trying to figure that out. I'm not, because at the end of the day, it's about what's going to be the highest return on investment. And there's going to be things that go down by the wayside that it's like, when you have power, you just get to choose. You get to cherry pick things. And yes, we know the right thing would be that, hey, the safety, but it also is a message saying, hey, you may have thought that you were a part of the elitist and semi-elitist, but it's also a message, to them to say, oh, well, we've changed that up. And so if you look at things from it just literally is a blowing by the wind. It's like whatever the wind feels like going to be, all of that sporadicness and things, it's so, in my opinion, insensitive, to not invest in that. But disaster has not been the first time. Look at Katrina and how it swept so many people. And this was, unfortunately, still encountered 100 or so people. But Katrina, how many thousand? And so it's always been visible about the ugliness of politics. And, and you have to look at things about what is their game, because they'll keep you distracted with one thing and you can't have the capacity to see, okay, what's what are they up to next? And, and I just want to help bring leverage to ways of thinking and seeing, because in a perfect world, you would do right and do what's right, but times are so influenced by power and an unrealistic government that it's literally, we are in the times of brace yourself,
Okay. Well, I was just thinking, because I remember back in the day when desegregation finally came, and then they started shutting down pools, because Black people now had access to them. And it just seems like that we would be concerned about the safety of our children. What's up, Alan Provost? What's up, Richard Cobb? What's going on? But anyway, it's time for us to get out of here. Well, write down this number next time somebody will call and we can talk because there are a lot of things that we need to talk about. And we'll be having, who's on next? Who's up next? Tomorrow. Oh, we're going to have Dr. Douglas, Dr. James Douglas on with us tomorrow. Going to be on at 2? Okay, 2:30. Oh, Dr. Douglas will be with us at 2:30. And something has been biting me. Y'all can see I've been scratching. I don't know exactly what it is or something that I'm allergic to. So please forgive me. I got to get to a dermatologist and find out what's going on with me. Maybe this beautiful black skin of mine is just getting old. All right. Well, it's time to end the stream, and that's what we're going to do. And hopefully we will see you tomorrow, and we'll have more general conversation with the good doctor, Dr. James Douglas. Have a great day. God bless and keep you all. For Gary Stone and Michael Harris, let me say, vaya con Deus.